The town of Oakhaven stood silent. It huddled beneath a sky full of heavy clouds. The air was cold, holding the promise of winter. On the edge of town, a mansion loomed. It was a dark silhouette against the grey sky. The mansion was known as Whispering Shadows. It had been empty for years. No one dared to go near it. Stories were whispered about the mansion. They spoke of strange lights and chilling sounds. The townsfolk believed it was haunted. Children were warned to stay away. They never disobeyed. The mansion cast a long shadow over Oakhaven. It was a shadow of fear and mystery. The townsfolk knew that some secrets were best left undisturbed. Thomas was different. He was a young man with a thirst for the unknown. The stories of Whispering Shadows fascinated him. He wanted to know the truth. His grandmother warned him about the mansion. "Don't go near that place, Thomas," she'd say, her voice trembling. "It's not safe, especially not on the night of the equinox, the autumn equinox. The night when the veil between the living and the dead was said to be thinnest, the night when the shadows grew stronger." Thomas listened to his grandmother's warnings. He nodded politely, but in his heart he knew he couldn't resist the pull of the mansion. He would see it for himself. He would face the shadows. The days grew shorter, the air grew colder, the leaves turned shades of red and gold. The equinox was approaching. Thomas could feel it in his bones. He made his preparations. He gathered a flashlight and a notebook. He told no one of his plans. He knew they wouldn't understand. They would try to stop him. On the eve of the equinox, a storm gathered. Wind howled through the town. Rain lashed against the windows. Thomas felt a thrill of anticipation. This was the night. Tonight he would uncover the truth of Whispering Shadows. The old iron gates groaned as Thomas pushed them open. He stepped onto the grounds of Whispering Shadows. The wind whipped around him. Rain soaked through his clothes. He didn't care. He was here. The mansion loomed before him, more imposing than he'd imagined. Its windows were dark eyes watching him. He took a deep breath and walked towards the front door. The door creaked open as if inviting him inside. Thomas stepped into the darkness. He was met by the smell of decay and the silence of the grave. He shivered. The darkness inside the mansion was heavy. It pressed down on Thomas, suffocating him. He fumbled for his flashlight and flicked it on. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing dust-covered furniture and cobwebs hanging from every corner. Thomas moved deeper into the mansion. The floorboards creaked beneath his feet. He could hear the wind howling outside. He thought he heard something else, too. A whisper, faint and indistinct. He stopped, listening. The whisper came again. This time he was sure of it. It seemed to come from the shadows themselves. "Turn back," the whispers hissed. "Turn back while you still can." Thomas's heart pounded in his chest. Thomas continued his exploration. He was drawn deeper into the mansion. He couldn't explain it. He felt a strange pull. The whispers grew louder. They seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The shadows in the mansion began to move. They stretched and swirled around him. They seemed to have a life of their own. Thomas watched in horror as a shadow detached itself from the wall. It glided towards him, taking on a vaguely human shape. He raised his flashlight, but the beam passed right through the shadow. It meant him no harm, or so he thought. It was then that he understood. The shadows weren't just shadows. They were entities, trapped within the mansion. They fed on fear, on the life force of the living. And they were hungry. The whispers intensified, swirling around Thomas like a vortex. "We've been waiting for you," they hissed. "Join us in the shadows." Thomas tried to run, but the shadows held him fast. He was trapped. He had walked willingly into their embrace. He had ignored the warnings, and now he would pay the price. He screamed. The shadows enveloped Thomas. He felt a cold, draining sensation. It was as if his very essence was being pulled from him. He struggled against their grasp, but it was no use. The shadows were too strong. His flashlight fell to the floor, the beam flickering and dying. Darkness consumed him. The whispers grew fainter as he drifted further into the shadow. He was lost, another soul claimed by whispering shadows. The mansion stood silent once more. The shadows retreated, satisfied they had feasted well. The storm raged on outside. The next morning, the storm had passed. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a pale light over Oakhaven. The townsfolk emerged from their homes. They noticed Thomas was missing. His grandmother searched for him, her heart heavy with dread. She knew where he had gone. She had always known. The townsfolk searched the mansion, but they found no trace of Thomas. He was gone, vanished without a trace. The legend of whispering shadows continued. The mansion remained, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked at the edge of town. And on the night of the equinox, the whispers could still be heard. They whispered of Thomas, another soul lost to the shadows. The whispers echoed in the silence. They would never be silenced.